Don't worry, but we'll try. You're on now, so he's hearing everything. So you're just keep going. Just keep
He's
digging.
already cut us off. You put stuff up there.
Dig
You
your
don't
hole.
show it to anybody anymore.
Dig your hole. Dig your hole.
Man,
All right. Looks
back
like
in my day. Yes, look at your meta AI. Yeah.
All right. Let's see if we can record this to the cloud. All right. We're on.
Woo!
I think everything worked. Thank you, Mr. Zuckerberg. We thank you. We thank you. Shh, don't say anything bad.
I don't. It's like machines. Like you have a label machine. Don't ever say this.
Rage
thing.
Against the Machine. We weren't
Yeah,
telling about what type of
like,
machine, but I'm
say
pretty sure it was a printer. All right. Hey, everybody. Welcome to Whiskey Wednesday. Oh, they are a small but feisty group today, Becky.
They came in out of the heat to the basement.
Why? Like, we have a small group today, but why? It's so hot outside. It's nice and cool in here.
Everybody's in the pool.
You know what's great about a liquor store? The weather's always perfect.
The weather is always
perfect.
It's always whiskey season in the liquor store.
There you go. Well, joining me today, of course, is Becky Harris, who is from Catoctin Creek. She is actually the co-founder. Scott says he's a co-founder too.
He is. It was his idea.
Yeah, but ideas are one thing.
Yeah.
The execution of that idea.
He has to do the Facebook stuff though. So I mean, he's earning some points for that.
That is just what would happen here. That is fair.
You can watch me sweat over a stupid reels.
Yeah, exactly. So he is useful, and I'm only teasing Scott. He's a great guy.
Scott is awesome.
He is. You would have to say that.
I do.
All right, so Becky's here, Catoctin Creek.
Yes.
So first of all, for those who don't know, give us a little background on Catoctin.
Oh my gosh. So we started 15 years ago.
Well, you're awful old in this business now.
Holy crap. Do you realize? So like one of the things since the last time I was here, I've like done more in like industry-wide advocacy. One of the things I've noticed is that when we started, there were 200 distilleries in the whole US.
Yep.
And this last year, there were 2,700 in the whole US. So we have seen this explosion of small brands in our lifetime. And, when we started, I mean, Scott likes to say that we were a pair of engineers, but we didn't know crap about branding, right? Our first labels, they were lame. And we were like the only distillery near Washington, D.C.
Mm-hmm.
We were it. Now there are like, well, there are less this year than there were last year because we're starting to see problems with it. But
but can you sort of see that? I mean, it's like anything else. It's the culling of the herd, right? It sort of you get like these you get the first in the doors, and they sort of pave the way. They sort of make the thing. And I've known quite a few of these people, so they sort of pave the way, and then it sort of explodes, and then everybody and their brother wants to be in this business. And I always say, like,
still seems like it, except now it's richer people.
That's
and
well.
How
do you make a little money in
start with the whole bunch.
You got to start with the whole bunch. That's the only way to do it. And so you sort of see that whole thing going, and now you're sort of seeing is the people that are savvy to what they need to do are the ones that are going to sort of make it the next hurdle.
It's really about are you at one point we had an investing partner say to us, y'all are scrappy. And I was like,
I hope that wasn't did they mean that as an insult?
I don't know if they did or they didn't, but I took it as a damn badge of honor. I'm going to do what I got to do.
Yeah, exactly.
And if things need to shift or you need to pivot and move one way or another way to kind of keep over your skis, that's what I want to do. I believe in what we do. We created this to tell the story of whiskey making before bourbon even existed, right?
America's original whiskey is rye.
200 years before bourbon.
Why? Okay, so why is I have my own theories, and you disprove it or not, but why is sort of rye like sort of the threshold? Because really, that's really where whiskey in the United States started with sort of rye.
Yeah. And it was agricultural,
Right.
right? Because especially where we are in Virginia, what you had was tobacco was king.
Right.
And tobacco strips the soil, so they would plant rye as a cover crop. And you don't waste anything. So that grain is harvested, and to preserve the grain, you turn it into whiskey. And who was doing that? Well, it wasn't the guys, because the guys needed to be out taking care of the tobacco. So it was actually the women.
Mm.
Women made the whiskey. It wasn't until around George Washington's time when the Olympics still came over from Europe, and that started to scale. And in about a 50-year period, you went from having, so at the time of George Washington's distillery, there were 13,000 distilleries in the colonies.
And they were all illegal.
Most of them, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it was mostly about preserving grain. Everybody went to
Well,
their
you need
local
to make it
place.
potable. It's going to go bad. You got to make it potable. You got to
would
right.
roll down. They used to call them in Virginia. They used to call them or horsey distilleries. And the reason they did it is because they said that the guys would go there on the horsey, and that way the horsey knew how to get back. Right? Because they
Makes
were
total
drinking
sense
way
to
too
me.
much, right?
Yeah, it makes total sense.
Way too much. But so 13,000 distilleries. And then you looked at that decreasing massively over like a 50-year period because technology improved, prices came down, volumes went up, and all the little guys got wiped out.
Okay.
And we went into prohibition with massive, huge production, right? When we see the pre-prohibition
Right.
whiskeys, we see
No,
the Maryland
absolutely.
ones, the Pennsylvania ones. Those are the only ones that still exist. Everybody forgot about Virginia because it was long gone, like gone for 100 years. And so what we wanted to do was talk about that part, right? When you were talking about people who were making rye from local grain, making whiskey from local grains, using pot still, small batch. We actually used 30-gallon barrels for most of our products. So most of the stuff you're going to taste tonight was aged in 30-gallon barrels. There are two reasons for that. One, 30-gallon was more authentic to that period because 53s.
I mean,
yeah,
that's all. That you can't. Who could move it?
Yeah, I couldn't. That's why we did 30s, because I was the only person making whiskey when we started. So 30s is the biggest one I can move by myself safely. And it's gives me seasonality, which is really was what was important to me.
Well, can I ask you a question on that too? Because I've heard like, a lot of people say, all right, a lot of people do these like really small barrels,
Yeah.
right? Right. And it's not cheating time. It's a different process.
That's a different thing.
It's a different thing, right? And then you get into bigger ones. I've heard this from several different people. They said if they had their druthers, they would use 30 gallons.
I love
because it's
30s.
sort of it's got enough, you can get enough age onto it, you get enough wood contact.
Yep.
And you're not getting sort of that graininess early like you do with
Yep.
smaller barrels.
Yep.
So
Not too many tannins right away.
right away, yeah.
Yeah.
So it almost seems like but it's never going to be industry size because the rest of the industry is sort of built on 53s, right?
They won't put up with the loss, right?
Right.
Because there's so much of the industry that depends on higher age statements. And when we were doing our barrel bottled in bond in 30s, I was losing a third of that barrel at 4 years. And that's not sustainable.
Because Virginia isn't exactly Scotland.
Yeah.
I mean, you're gonna, you're still in that sort of same thing. You're gonna lose.
Yeah.
You're gonna lose a lot. It gets hot. It gets hot.
In 2 years, I'll lose 15%. By 4 years, I'm at 30 plus. And that's not really sustainable, to kind of make any economic sense, especially, how with the barrels costing essentially the same at every size.
Well, that's the other thing that people always mention. It's like, oh, well, 30-gallon it cost me the same as because it's not when we talk about champagne though. It's like when we talk about champagne, because of the pressure in the bottles, there's no, like if you go to a bigger size, usually when you go to a bigger size in something, it's cheaper.
Yeah.
Right. It's not because it has more glass.
Yeah.
Same thing. You go smaller.
Doesn't.
It's more labor intensive to make.
Yes.
So there's no savings.
You're not really saving any money. So that's why I think 53s became the industry standard, because it made sense for that. I have been super happy using 30s at 2-year-old for most of our main product lineup. So it's hits me in all the pleasure spots. I mean, for 15 years, I've been hearing people say to me, that's or like our Cask Brew, for instance, that's the most delicious whiskey I've ever tasted. When's it going to be older? And it's like, it's perfect.
Well, it's not going to be, well, it's not going to
It's
be
not gonna
older.
be older because I want it to be right there. That's really where that product should be. That was why we created the bottled in bond, which we got a little taste of later. Should we taste like one of the first
Yeah,
ones?
you know what? They're
You
going to
know?
get mad at me anyway. So
Yeah,
let's
start
let's
on
do the
number
first one,
one.
the 80 proof.
Yeah, so this is the one we started with, essentially. It's a 2-year-old. I call it my front porch sipper. This is our biggest seller in Virginia. Well, Virginia is a control state, so you know how that goes, which means everything's priced through the roof. But this one is a front porch sipping whiskey. It's super. I use it to convert people who tell me, and I get so many people who tell me, I don't like rye. It's too spicy. And I'm like, come in, the water's fine. Try this, try this whiskey. This is easy. It's got more fruit notes. It's not quite so spicy as, but people still have this old vision in their mind of, when I started in 2009, nobody believed this was rye. Because
Well, there wasn't enough people that had drunk rye at the point. They had already
Exactly.
this preconceived notion of what rye was, right?
And for 15 years, I've been telling people, I can't wait until there are enough distilleries around the country making rye from scratch so that you actually know that rye can be just as diverse and exciting and interesting as single malt. And I believe that's where we're getting to now.
But here's the other thing, people, I know right now is like, people watching this even right now, they're like, 2 years, poo poo, like,
Yeah.
that's not old enough
Yeah.
to have character, to have anything. It's going to be grainy. It's going to be this and that. The first thing is that I've found with rye matures quicker.
Yeah, it's so
So a
good.
2-year-old rye to a 4-year-old rye in a 53, let's say, is going to taste significantly older than that same period of a bourbon.
For sure.
Okay. Now, on top of that, you're making 30 gallons.
Yep.
And again, you're not cheating time. It's just the way it's going to age differently in a 30 gallon in comparison to a 53.
100%.
So now but still, that's going to, like, I don't want to say, I hate to say accelerate, but it's not. It's just
really not.
just going to be what it is. But it's again, you get that still of like, it's a little bit more mature at an earlier age.
Yeah.
So now you get to sort of, first of all, smart to do rye.
Yep.
If you're going to use smaller barrels, I think it's smart to do rye.
Rye is so good, young.
Right. And now, so
Yeah.
you have now these two factors
Yep.
that are contributing to tasty younger whiskey.
Yes. And I've tried our Cask Proof up against a 20-year-old rye in a group setting, and most people preferred the 2-year-old rye because there's a gorgeous, fresh, grainy character to rye. And I think that's something that you don't necessarily find in the same way with bourbon. And that's another way.
It hits different.
It hits differently.
Yeah.
Exactly. So this was essentially, this is like my intro.
What do you guys think?
What do you think?
Good?
It's
Good? Okay? Okay? Decent? I mean, you can say what you want. No one can hear you.
Yeah.
We're the only ones that can hear you. Becky can hear you. And I see that she's pretty tough. I don't want to meet her outside afterwards. But other than that, please feel free to speak your mind. No, but I think this at the price point at 80 proof, I think this is a solid sipper.
That's how I wanted it to be. This is, like I said, there to convert people. And I use it all the time for that. Because I do get a lot of people who are like, oh, right, I don't like that.
Well, you got people coming to visit the distillery and they're like, they get dragged along by somebody else who likes whiskey.
Yep.
Whether it's the boyfriend or the girlfriend or the husband or the wife or whatever. Grandma, grandpa, whatever, whoever it is, couple, one likes whiskey when the other one does, a significant other, however, whatever different conglomeration that sort of makes up. They're walking in the distillery and the first thing they're doing is like, I don't like it.
Yeah.
And then you have to say, well, did you try it? And like a lot of people say to me, I don't like whiskey. Oh, you've tried them all.
Yeah.
And they go like, well, no. I go, well, how many have you had? And then they go like, well, my girlfriend drinks it and I smell it and I don't like it.
Yeah. It's
Okay,
like,
well, there's a big difference here. All right, let's start there. None of it's going to kill you to try it, and it's okay if you don't like it.
yeah,
But sooner or later you will find in all likelihood, sooner or later you will find a whiskey you like.
for sure.
So it's like, like listen, and your taste buds change all the time. I mean,
All the time.
how many things do you eat now that you would never have touched when you were a kid?
Oh, yeah,
How many things you eat now that you wouldn't even, you would have scoffed at when you were 21?
exactly.
Right? I mean, so there's your taste buds change, your perception changes. So you have to keep an open mind. This one is like, this is the converter.
Yeah, it's
All right.
there, like,
Like, I don't
easy.
like here, try this.
It's also got a good price point. You know, one of the things that as a business you need is something that's going to be at a price point that's accessible, especially for bars and restaurants. If you
I mean,
want to
this is
get
under
placements.
$35.
Yeah, here in Virginia it's 45. So that
All right.
just shows you how rough it is to operate in a control state like Virginia. So it's it's a nice entry point for rye for people who are rye curious, maybe.
Okay, so let's pop to number 2,
Yes.
which is the Distiller's edition.
Yes. So
All right.
this is
So this is
one.
yours.
Yeah. So this
This is your
is
bad
funny
one.
because people tell me which one's your favorite, and I'm like, well, I'm a whiskey mom, so it depends on the day which one is my favorite. But
My kids all
staff,
oh
my
well,
staff, this one is their favorite.
I have two daughters, and people say, do you have a favorite? And I go, yes. And they're like, they take a step back, and I go, but which one's the favorite depends on the day.
Exactly.
So this
Yeah,
is the same
that's the
thing.
same
So
for
right,
me,
right.
but this is my staff's favorite pretty much every day.
Okay.
This is their shift drink, their sipper. Got a lot more of that rye character to it, right?
Yeah, this is now you've pumped up sort of the spiciness on it. You're getting some of those baking spices now in
Yeah.
this one.
Mm-hmm.
But still, what's the proof on this one?
This one is 92 proof, so not
All right,
super high.
But you're also talking about, and you don't chill filter anyways, do
No,
you?
no, I don't.
Even
feel
at the
for
80,
it.
right?
No, no.
Yeah, that's
So
what I thought.
sometimes if it gets cold, you'll see some
Flocculation,
yeah, in the
little
bottom.
cloudiness.
Yeah, I get calls every year or so about somebody going, there's something growing in my whiskey. Like, warm it up and shake it. It'll be okay.
We talk about that all the time.
Yeah.
It's a sign that you're getting a less processed product.
Right.
It's perception, right?
Yeah, 100%.
Perception is for people who don't know, oh my God, there's something wrong.
Yeah.
Perception with people that do know go like, oh my God, they didn't do shit to my
something.
whiskey.
Yeah.
This is great. So
So
I just
when
got I
when
just
you're
I,
doing
I
these
just got
two-
I just got I just got censored.
Uh-oh.
All hell Zuckerberg.
Don't do it. Don't do it.
I don't hold the record, by the way.
Yeah. So one of the things that's a little different that we do with these first 3 whiskeys though is these are all single barrel whiskeys. What I'm doing is tasting each barrel at the different proofs and finding where it gives the experience I'm looking for.
Okay.
So like if it tastes best at 80, that's what this barrel will be. And it gets kind of self-selected into there. Then if it's best at 92, and then every so often you find those casks that they're great at cask, right? And for me, a cask proof whiskey, with the middle proof, so the 92, what I love there is I want to find some fruity notes. I want to find some kind of like citrus and those baking spices. And I want to have it kind of have the warm spice and maybe some mint or some menthol on the finish. It doesn't always the same, but it gives me that same
So
feeling.
are you making small batches, or are you making just single barrel selections
Yeah.
that fit into a profile?
Fit into an experience profile.
Okay.
Yeah. So that's kind of what I do that's a little different. And then the experience for cask proof, which is number 3.
Number 3.
is-
What did you think of
Yeah, I'm sorry.
Distiller's
Like,
edition?
hold on here. You like that? That's
Do you
much
like that
more
better?
Your group.
Well, it's going to be interesting. Which one do you like better? 1, raise your hand.
Okay.
2. Okay.
Yeah. And like I said, it's a different and we came
Be
with
different.
number
You stay
2.
different. Don't you dare change.
But it's funny because you look in Virginia, which is our home market, we sell more there than anybody else, right? And this one outsells this one massively, right? The 80 proof is the workhorse.
It's that's keeps the lights on and right?
Educated my son, right?
Right.
It paid the bills.
Right.
We thought when we started this one that we were just gonna like fade away the 80 proof.
You're going to cannibalize the first, right?
Oh, this is going to, everybody's just going to kind of convert over to this one. And it didn't work that way. People really, there's a whole.
And this isn't like
group of
crazy.
people.
The second one too is the Distiller's edition is not crazy. I
No.
mean, you're talking about you're talking about Distiller's, you're talking about 92.
Yeah.
I mean, you're not talking like a huge, you're not
Not a
talking
massive.
cask strength whiskey,
No.
which we're going to get to.
Yeah.
But you're not talking like that. I tell you what I've been seeing a lot more people talk about is, and we're going to, but well, let's go into the cask strength and
Yeah.
I'll tell my story after
Sure.
when we try the cask strength. So what's the cask strength coming? Each barrel, I'm assuming is different.
Yeah, they are. Generally, what we tend to find is that the ones that are, in that 116 range are generally the ones that hit where I'm looking for it to be. For me, a cask proof whiskey, first of all, has to smell amazing. It's like I actually have drums with removable tops. So the first cut is essentially when I open up and put my face in there. And if I want to stay, then it's got a shot, right? Then the next step. But if I'm not like in love with the smell of it, don't even need to taste it. I just start moving it on.
Mm-hmm.
Intensity, it's got to have intensity, but the intensity has to be coupled at the same time with the flavor. Because I really don't like just burning and waiting. Because I've had cask proof whiskeys where I'm just like,
yeah.
And you're just kind of like waiting
Yeah.
for everything to subside, but it has to have enough texture. To me, I think it's a lot about the texture. We do use like the pot still distillation, and I use a like 6-hour cycle where I'm basically holding the reflux back to really get those oils at the end of the rye distillation. So we're distilling for a long time when the ABV of the mash itself is quite low. And what that means is I'm bringing up a lot of chewiness at that point. And
there's a definite viscosity going on.
It
here.
is. It's about texture. It's about that kind of covering your tongue, and it insulates you in some ways from that heat, that you get at 116. So it's got to be kind of that whole package to be this.
Try the Randall Bird method. Take a sip of water, take a drink of water, slug of water, and then try this one right after it, rather than adding water to the sample, just to see the water. Just a couple of drops of water. All of a sudden, there's a whole bunch of other stuff going on here too. It's not really changing the ABV that much. You're adding a couple of drops of water. It's just to break that surface tension, bring out some more of those flavors that are sitting there. They're really, really good.
Yeah, this is just like one of those whiskeys. It's always good. It's always really good. And I've always been really, really proud and happy of this one. And like I said, for 15 years, people say, when it's going to be older? And I'm like, why? Doesn't need to be. It's okay. Really, I love it.
The other, well, what I've been noticing lately is on the interwebs, on the social media platforms, is people are now talking about for the longest time, we've always been talking about high ABVs,
Yes.
cask strengths, hazmats, going up to like the hazmat range, but higher ABVs, and people going like, I don't like drinking it that hot. Where are the ones that are like 101 or 100 or 110 or something like that, and people are starting to look like down the scale. I go, well, you don't have to do that. I mean, cask strength whiskey that most of the distillers are putting out, not necessarily meant to be drunk at that high heat. You got to start thinking of these things as whiskey concentrates, right? I feel like I'm on repeat here, but it's one of those type of things that you have to tell people time and time again. It's okay to add some water. It's okay to drink the whiskey at a ABV that you feel comfortable with. Everybody's different.
Your
right.
tongue is,
Right.
more people are sensitive. Some people are really sensitive to ethanol, and it like reads so hot to them that it's really unpleasant at even 80 proof.
You can bring it down to whatever you want to bring it down to, as long as it's drinkable. And people are like, well, I don't add water. I go, somebody does. Somebody adds water. If you're drinking anything but cask strength, somebody added water. Why can't you be the person that adds the water? What is it? Somebody else have much more knowledge of what you like than you?
Live dangerously. Add the water.
It's okay. Don't add tap water. And we're outside of Worcester. Don't add Worcester tap water, because that has like that has like protein in it. So it's got it's a little they
Like
I
the
used to
foaming on the on your
yeah,
fish tank.
don't add tap water. One of the ones that I do, and uh somebody had taught me, Lisa had taught me this. Use like mineral water, but take the bubbles out of it.
Yeah.
Let it go flat and use that water. You get the minerality, especially when you're doing rye and bourbons. It really goes well.
Yeah, that's
So,
nice.
but you know, it's okay.
Yeah.
No one's going to lose a life by adding water to it. All right.
Yeah, if
So
it goes too far, you can always put a little more whiskey in.
that's usually how I get in trouble. I'll tell you what. Sometimes I gotta,
You gotta get it
I,
just
I gotta,
right.
I gotta tell you, Becky. Sometimes that's how I get myself in trouble because I just can't get it right. And I go,
Too
no,
much, too little,
not too much, too little, too much. And I'm drinking at the same time, and I'm like, and by the time I go, oh, okay, everything's too much now. But I get myself in trouble that way. What do you guys think of the? What do you guys think of the cask strength? Good. Yeah, I think it's really nice. I think it's great. And like I said, a couple drops of water on this one.
Yeah.
Spot on. Spot on.
Sure,
Really, really
good.
good. I mean, this is what we just tasted really is out of your core lineup.
Yeah, this is like my classic set, right? This is kind of what we produce all the time, for the past 15 years, give or take, probably at least the last 13 years, we've had the whole lineup, 14 years.
Yeah, and I think it's a solid lineup.
Yeah.
I don't like again, a lot of other people would love to have this type of lineup. It's a good solid lineup. All right, now let's deviate.
Yeah, and
Now that we've done
because
that,
we have Ryan and y'all involved, we had to go out there with a
so
pick.
so first of all, I saw the single barrel were being offered, and I saw the label that they were using for single barrels. And we started going through. Becky and Scott were nice enough to send up a bunch of samples for Gio, myself, Randall, and John to try, and we hit on one that we all really liked. So we started looking at like the yields and called Becky and I said, that's a really low yield on the 30.
Yeah.
She goes, yeah, it had a leak in it. So I'm looking at this thing.
It should have been, it should have been more.
Yeah, it should have been more, but I love that stuff though, by the way, just in case you're all wondering, is like you get a 30-gallon, it's got a leak in it. Randall and I have talked about this a lot, is air in the barrel is different than air in the bottle. Okay, because it hasn't been bottled yet. It's still living, breathing, sort of going along, right? And it just sometimes we unbeknownst to us, we'll pick what we call a short fill. It's not really short fill. It's a leaker. Something happened and it ended up with less liquid in it. And I'm looking at this thing and it goes like Prohibition. It looks like a Prohibition label, through and through, right? And I'm watching Peaky Blinders, and so hence the name Leaky Binders. So the binder obviously being the barrel. So this one's called Leaky Binders. We have a little bit of this left, not much of it. Actually, we were out of it, and one of our Outpost stores had some, and we got it back from the wholesaler, and we got a little bit more, not much. I think it's all that's left. It's what's on the shelf at this point. So here is
the difference between the two.
I don't even know what was the ABV on this one. Do you remember?
Good question. I looked at it, but I didn't absorb it.
It didn't go 59.
59. So it's just a tick higher.
Just a tick higher. And it only, it produced, it says 120 bottles.
Yeah. So it's down maybe.
Which is, yeah, because you're talking about a 30-gallon, but you're talking a relatively young too.
Yep.
So usually you don't lose, that much on it. But this is, I really like this. And they made our logo in a stamp, which I even liked even better because it looked like it's old timey.
Yeah. I sit there and go, roll that stamp on the front.
Yeah,
roll that stamp on the front. It was a good
looks really good.
Yeah. It's a good looking one. I love that one. It's pretty cool.
It does not, it is a higher proof than the cask strength. However, you are correct. It's very well integrated. As I say, it stokes the fire, but doesn't choke the chimney. You know what I'm saying? So you get that warm feeling, but it's not overwhelming. It doesn't taste, it's almost 120 proof. I think you're absolutely right on that, Megazone.
It's
What do you
got
guys?
a
What do you
really
guys think?
gorgeous flavor to
I
it.
love this. I
I
love.
mean,
This.
even I'm like tasting the two next to each other, and it's so cool. This one has a really, I'm just trying to put a name to it right now.
It's got the herbal quality to
Mhm.
it. It's got a little bit of sweetness to it, which is like sort of offset it. It's almost like a really good lozenger. You have like lozenge where you get a little bit of sweet, but you get that herbal sort of note to it.
Almost a little lemony
Yeah,
almost.
there's
You know,
this little.
a little,
There's definitely a little citrus in there.
Yeah, that one's so
What do you guys
good.
think of this one? Yeah, this is a really good one. I think this one came out great.
Yeah,
Buy
really
the
good
rest of it so I can take this bottle home with me. There's a little bit left in this bottle. I want to take it home with me. So that's number 4.
Yeah,
Okay, so
wild
now
card.
now this is total wild card, right?
Yeah.
This is a new product or a new product to Massachusetts anyway.
Yes, yes, it's a brand new product. This I think we launched it last October, really. Um it was so this came out of a barrel select kind of project back in the day. We had a hot honey producer locally who um took
This is getting
one of
sort of
our
personal, isn't it?
yeah,
No,
took our barrel and put hot honey in it and then returned it. We, sold the hot honey, the barrel aged hot honey, but we put whiskey in because we were like, okay, let's see what it does. And there was so much honey in that barrel. I think I used that barrel 3 times trying to get because it just would not
it would
even
not go
take
away,
enough
right?
honey out of it. And
Honey gets in there.
it does.
Yeah.
And people, I think the first time I released it was actually at barrel at Cask Proof to as a store pick, and then I had it the last time was as a tasting room, and it was at 80 proof. And people, I mean, for years I'd have people be, I got a bottle of that. Can I get some more? When are you guys going to do that again? And we were like, oh, that the honey guy, he'd taken this next barrel and it crystallized 30 gallons of honey. So he was like, I'm done.
Oh,
Yeah.
geez, yeah.
He was like, no more. And so
Well, it's not an easy thing to work with.
no.
Honey's not easy. I will tell you a little bit of story. I had I had these people they do like hot sauces and stuff like
Yeah.
that up in Vermont, and we were doing a project with them. Actually, we were putting fermenting peppers in barrels,
Right.
and we were going to make a hot sauce out of it. And so I'm telling them about the different barrel projects. You go, could you look at a project we're trying to do? Could you take a peek at it? And I go, sure, why not, right? And I'm always curious what people are doing, right? They take me in a room and they have it was probably about a 30-gallon barrel. Might have been a little smaller than that, but let's say it's a 30-gallon barrel in this room. And they had this barrel on a thing with like a tray under it. And honey is just coming out of like every crack in the
Oh,
barrel.
100%.
It's oozing in the thing. And they going, yeah, we're not sure what we're doing wrong. I go, you filled it. And they go, what? I go, you filled it. And they go, I go, you don't fill a wooden barrel with something that's viscous and you filled it. It's going to, I said, take some out before it busts the barrel.
Well, honey also
right.
absorbs
Right.
the water, so it dries
It's dried
out
the barrel at the same time.
and
So you're making
it's
cracks.
sucking it. Yeah.
You're creating cracks. And then you could tell like you wanted to take the plank and the stave and push it back in. I go, no, you got to take that out. And I said, you got to basically put less honey in, keep rotating the barrel.
The best guy I ever worked with who did it, he actually was a maple syrup producer.
That's who we learned this from.
Also, one of the things he did is he took that, I forget the name for this, that matting they use when they're moving stuff, it's like that, what is it called? Shoddy. It's like a fabric made out of little bits of chopped fabric.
Okay.
And use it to wrap furniture when you're moving. He took that.
Oh, yeah, I know what you're talking about. Yeah.
He soaked it. He wrapped it around and put it on both ends of the barrel. He got it totally wet. And then he wrapped the whole thing with like shrink wrap.
Shrink wrap.
And then he put the syrup in, and those barrels stayed perfect because they stayed wet because he had them wet from the outside, right? Because it just dries them out. And then if it's full, it starts crawling out.
Oh, yeah, it's just crawling out. I'm like, you're going to lose all this. Yeah. You need to take that out.
I know, because I'm always like telling guys, like we get them back from some of our maple, and some of them aren't as good about how to handle the barrels when they're dealing with those sugar solutions. And so you have barrels that have significant leaks. So you can't put the whiskey in
Yeah,
there yet.
it's gonna be a sieve.
Yeah, you know, you're
Yeah.
gonna be done. So it's like we end up with we got like a big tray and we like soaking it from the outside, trying to,
Get the wood to
get the wood
expand.
to rehydrate, get rid of the sugar that's clogging these cracks and making them big. It can
We
take
use
a month.
Al Woods Al Wood from Al Woods maple syrup in Vermont, and he's just such a meticulous guy. Makes great syrup, and he does all of our stuff that we do with him.
That's
And
a
it's
good
just,
one. Yeah,
and it's
they
just
know.
like he just he's been doing this for a while now, and he just knows.
Yeah, they just
But
know.
just know how to get it done. So
Exactly.
it is something you have to actually. You just had to say like, oh, I'll go to try it. You
Yeah.
just can't.
No, because you'll be like miserable. You'll
Yeah.
watch money pouring out. Which
Especially
is
when you start looking at maple syrup, the cost of maple syrup, the cost
Yeah.
of honey
Oh God,
is like
honey's so expensive.
It's crazy. It's crazy.
So
all right, so we got
we
hot
put
honey.
honey in this barrel, right? And we did this. And so people keep asking. Fast forward to last year, and we had been last year was a tough year for a lot of small producers. And, so we were like, what could, what kind of thing could we launch that could kind of like, because we've had the same lineup for a long time. And it's like, okay, what can kind of like open people's eyes and kind of rethink
Right.
the brand again? And so I told my husband, and he was kind of like, because he loves him some precious, perfect whiskeys. And I'm like, why don't we give the people what they want?
There's a novel idea.
Yeah, right. They love this hot honey thing. Why don't we give these people something? But I said, we can't make it be a barrel age project because it's too hard to get consistency. And so it was weirdly enough last year, February, that I said, let's go ahead and I will figure out how to infuse the honey. I'll make the hot honey ourselves because the price of buying hot honey bulk was like insane. And I'm like, I'll figure out how to my own hot honey recipe. And then I'm going to figure out how to infuse it and deal with it. And then we'll get a label, and we've got to have this ready by May for the ABC, because when you're in a control state, you go through a listing process.
That's right. And then if you don't hit the numbers,
months.
You're done.
If we didn't make it by May, we couldn't have that product sell in October. So we had to have it ready by May. So
those are the people who don't know. It's crazy.
It is crazy.
It is just crazy. It doesn't follow, because for producers, it's insane because that doesn't follow how you would launch a product. It doesn't follow a marketing scheme.
No.
It doesn't follow. It makes no, other than a government person, it makes no sense at all.
No sense at all.
And the government person goes, well, that's the way we do it.
Yep.
That's their answer.
That's the process. Here's your process.
Here you go.
To submit at this time. So we got it ready to submit, and then we worked it. So honey's hard to work with. Not only does it do other things, it's expensive, but the process of doing it. So when you look at the label here, it actually says that it's infused with wildflower honey. It's not just wildflower honey, because when I was doing this, we're doing this simultaneously. We're developing the product and the label simultaneously and just getting it to get done. What I ended up was I didn't love wildflower honey alone. I wanted it to have a little bit more depth of flavor to it and texture. I wanted it a little chewier. So I actually ended up using a blend of 3 different honeys. It took a lot of trial and error, but I ended up using a blend of clover, wildflower, and buckwheat honey.
Buckwheat honey.
Buckwheat honey. And that kind of added that gorgeous kind of like molassesy texture I really wanted to get to. For me, what I was looking for with this and is I wanted it to be whiskey. So it's 80 proof. It's 80 proof. It's whiskey. Had to taste like whiskey first and foremost. Then I wanted it to smell like honey. I wanted that honey to come in, and I wanted a really nice balanced taste of the honey after the whiskey. And then I just wanted just enough heat to be there, let you know that there's some chilies in there, but it couldn't be like where you were doing this. I wanted it to be like that journey. And so it took quite
Does
a
this get
bit.
hot? Does this get hotter the more you drink it? Is it like a sneaky heat? I like to call it sneaky heat.
It
like
kind of not so much for me. It's more when you start mixing it, you get like if you make this into a whiskey sour, you kick up the heat a little bit because
Okay.
you'll start. I actually had a really good one. They had it on the cocktail menu at I think it was Central Public House over in Hopkinton.
Yep.
They
Those
they
guys are
had
great
it,
over there. By the way.
yeah, it was really good. They had a hot honey, they made a honey gold rush essentially. So they had the hot honey, honey syrup, and lemon.
Hmm.
And it had a nice little spice to it, just enough, not enough to kind of like be too hot. And so for me, that was like, it should be something you could just put on a cube and sip, or it could be something that you could play with. Honestly, the first thing I played with to do this was a Manhattan. I used it to make a Manhattan with, and I used little chocolate bitters.
Hmm.
And it was so good because then you get that little chili and that little
Yeah.
chocolate, and it was super fun. So this was a fun one, and it's been growing really well.
You got that like raisiny, spiced raisin sort of on the nose, I
Yeah.
think too, like almost like a darker honey,
Yes.
which I get with darker honey.
So we got a honey producer just actually over the mountain from where our distillery is. They've it and so we just go over there and I pick up 5-gallon buckets because I don't have enough production to use drums. So I get like to do a batch. So I could probably do 450 6-pack cases, and that'll take me about, that's like maybe 6 5-gallon buckets, so 30 gallons.
That's
So-
expensive.
Oh, it's expensive.
That's expensive.
And-
That honey's expensive.
And that's the thing though. I really wanted it to be natural honey. So one of the other things that you might see is you might see cloudiness in the bottom, right? Because honey has insolubles in it. And so this was kind of cool because back in 2017, the National Honey Board had a honey spirit summit, and the first one they had was in Nashville, and I was invited and I went, and it was really interesting. They taught you all about bees, and you got to, taste all these different honeys. And if you've never gone to a honey tasting, it's really, really cool. You get these exotic honeys, and some of them are really amazing, and some of them are kind of disgusting. And honey is
So you got stung.
incredibly diverse. So I had this binder of all the things that you need to know to work with honey and spirits. And it sat for years until I was ready for this project. And then I'm like, oh yeah, all these things I needed to remember, And so one of them was dealing with insolubles. And so, because of the way, and we had a really good discussion last year, actually, at the Honey Summit in Austin with the folks from Bar Hill, because, they work with more honey than just about anybody. And they were talking about that they've been really trying to study what causes the insolubles to drop down and how fast. And it drives them nuts because they're shooting for really good clear every time, right? And I put the little you may see insolubles on here because I was like, I got to do this in a hurry. I don't know.
I'm gonna get a lot of phone calls. I'm gonna get a lot of phone calls too. Like, what's going on?
So, but they were theorizing that it might have something to do with the mineral content of where the honey is harvested or created, because they said in some parts of state, they were finding like near the lakes where the honey was being harvested, it would have a certain kind of level of turbidity. Whereas if it were up in the mountainy parts where it's rocky, it was different, and it would stay suspended longer, and it was more likely to come out in the bottle if it was in this stonier ground, which I thought was fascinating.
That is fascinating.
Yeah. But I was like, okay, well, I got to do this product fast.
All right. So my criteria for a flavored whiskey is I have to be able to taste that it's whiskey. It can't be something that I could have used vodka, which is an alcohol delivery system. I couldn't use vodka to make the same product. And then there are products up there that are flavored whiskey. Yep. And I go, I don't know why you wasted.
Like
I don't know why you wasted your money. You should have just done. Yeah, you should. Yeah, you should have just. Yeah, you should have just used vodka. And we're fine. I know. I get it that you wanted to use the word whiskey. I get it because that's hot right now. But technically, you could have used anything.
Right.
So, I love the fact that it's 80 proof.
Yeah.
I love the fact that you can taste the whiskey. It
Mhm.
doesn't the honey part of it doesn't take away from the whiskey experience. And I always feel like, especially when you're introducing people to whiskey, um, it's one of those type of things. If you can get them to drink it and still taste the whiskey, eventually they will drink. And I hate to say it this way, real whiskey,
You know,
right? Because it's that
it's
it's that
starting somebody with an old fashioned, right?
right.
You know,
You
you
got to
start
get
with
them
an
there.
old fashioned and oh, I like this. This is good. I don't mind drinking this. And then maybe someday they'll try it neat.
Right. Exactly. And so, again, something like this is spot on. Good job.
Thank you.
A really good
I
job.
was so nervous. Oh my God, because we did it so quick, right? I was tasting it among the people that I worked with. And I didn't, I hadn't really gotten to
work.
socialize it among other folks, which was so friends of mine, like Tracy
Well, it depended on
Franklin.
how they reacted to this, whether they
Well,
were going to be friends of yours.
but like Tracy Franklin, Tracy,
Yeah.
she was like, "Hey, I saw Avalon. She had your hot honey," and I'm like, "And?" She said, I asked her if she asked me if I wanted to try it, and I was like, "Nah." And she's like, and Avalon's like, "Come on, I think you'll like it." And I said, "What do you
Do
think?"
it.
And she said, "Okay, I liked it."
Yeah, it's okay. Like it's okay. I mean, people always get into that fact. I go, you drink other drinks, right?
Yeah,
You drink other
I
alcoholic
you drink
products.
cocktails,
Like you drink
so
cocktails. I mean, what's the foul here?
yeah,
There
that's
is
what
none.
I
There
felt
isn't
like.
none.
I felt like if it was still recognizably whiskey, that's what mattered
Correct.
to me. And
That's
that
that's
was
the key, I think, with anybody doing something like this. It still has, if you're going to call it whiskey, it has to still be recognizable as whiskey.
100%. That
Right.
was like my thing.
Thank you, sir.
So this is our wild card friend here. So this is what, so I laugh because this is all those years, 15 years, people say, oh, when are you going to have something older? And when are you going to have something aged in 53-gallon barrels? So for the first, right, like till 2016, I was aging in 30-gallon barrels. My method of transport was a 1993 Ford Ranger. You can fit 4 30-gallon barrels in the back of a 1993 Ford Ranger to take them to the warehouse. No more. 5 is, didn't like the
Didn't like
5.
that. Yeah.
Yeah, 4 was it. And we originally at that time were aging in it was a old horse barn.
Okay.
That was on some property that we knew people. They had an old horse barn. Wasn't structurally totally there, but we would
Open to the elements, you're saying?
parts of it.
Yeah,
Where,
parts of it,
like
yeah.
some of the stalls were sketchy. Don't go in that one. Don't put anything in there. Um, and so we'd roll them down the ATV ramp, flip them end over end into the corners. Then in 2016, 2017, I got a real live warehouse and a forklift. So the first thing I did was, okay, we can put some 53s down.
But the problem in the Ford Ranger, that would only fit 2.5.
If that.
2.5 barrels you
The
could get in the back.
Had to go to its retirement
Yeah, there
at
you
that
go.
point. Yeah, my husband still loves a Ford Ranger, kind of unreasonably in some ways. Not the new fancy ones. He likes the old Ford Rangers.
The ones he can fix or
Yeah.
or repair daily.
He likes
Ford
trucks. He doesn't want a big truck.
Right.
So he's like, I like my Ford Ranger. So he like goes hunting for them. He's weird. So we got
Depends
a
on who
box
you
truck.
ask,
We
yeah.
got a box truck.
Oh,
so
that's
now I can put 53-gallon barrels in it. So
and easier to get out of.
so much easier. So much easier. So this is for our 15-year anniversary, what I did. So I had a kind of a fun year getting ready for 15. I got to develop this whiskey, which I hadn't been able to do, right? I didn't done any of that. We didn't do anything with those things. I actually had probably 15 or 16 53-gallon barrels, and I got to choose barrels for a bottled in bond project. Every other year I had like 3 30-gallon barrels that were each 2/3 full. So that was basically
right.
You get to use all of them. You don't have any selection. You're just like roll the dice and hope for the best, sister. And this year I got to be like, oh, I can play with blends. And so I had so much fun. It was so much fun. So this is a 9-barrel blend, of which probably a third of them were really leaky. So I had one guy who took samples and he didn't do a very good job of pounding the plugs back
That's
in.
what he's saying.
Yeah, either that or he took
It's
it
called
out.
the honey. It's called the honey barrel, and
So
he was drinking that sucker.
yeah, we had a lot of light
That was
barrels on
leaking, like,
Leaking.
walking
Oh
the
my
dog. You
gosh.
know what I'm saying?
So anyway, we had quite a few of these. So this is 100 proof. It is 6-year-old and it is a blend of 9 different 53-gallon barrels. So this was totally, oh, this is also distilled slightly differently than this product. So still 100% rye. What I do slightly differently is, so we use a pot still, but it's got a column on top. In my regular process, I tend to use a little more reflux. For the bottled and bond product, I shut off those and I'm only using maybe 1-2 plates of the 6 to reflux it. So
Okay.
it's a little chewier through the hole, gives you a different profile. And so I do that for my bottled and bond projects. And so this was fun.
This
And
is really good. I like this one a lot.
is.
It is different, and I like it. And I got to tell you though, and you probably might even hate me for this. I don't know, but this proves the point to me about tasting these. It is a different. It tastes different. It's very good, but there's no the quality is the same on your, like, the cast strength and the single barrel and the other one. The quality is the same. So I mean, it sort of disproves that it has to be 53. It has to be aged longer. It has to be this. No, this is great. Don't get me wrong.
Oh,
But
I did too.
there's no like, oh, these are now inferior compared to this. Right?
It's kind of it. What is interesting to
It's
me
like sort
was
of
that
proof
it
in the
kind of
pudding.
proof of the pudding for me was like all these things. Now I have all these things that the conventional wisdom would make
Better
markedly
whiskey.
better whiskey.
What do you guys think? Do you agree with me, or am I totally off base? Or it's different. Yeah, but she did stuff. Yeah, you're right. She did different stuff to
I
it.
did different stuff.
But I'm saying it's
And you
yeah.
can tell it's
But
different,
right.
but it's not like, oh, thank God, because that's
About time. About time she actually did it right. But I don't think you found that.
because like we had it in, we put this out, I think, because they did the ascot tasting. I think we threw that in there with the cast proof and the hot honey. And it was like the lowest rated of the 3 in their tasting was this. The hot honey was next, and the cast proof was top. So it's like, they're all good. It's
And
just,
again, that's also subjective too.
it's all subjective. I
Right.
mean, ratings are just ratings. And at a moment in time with a group of people, I'm always like I have a very scientific perspective on it, that it's like, it isn't science.
Right.
It's all subjective.
No, but
But
thank
it
you.
just
Yeah,
says-
definitely.
What I love about this is that it's like, yeah, it was so fun to make. It's delicious.
Let's
I'm
give you
really
excitement.
happy with it, but it was fun.
Yeah.
It was cool to do that and to have that opportunity. And it also kind of makes me want to play with some other stuff down the road in different ways.
Sky's the limit now.
Yeah,
Right?
exactly.
Now
It's
you have
like, now I
the
can do
get
some
go.
stuff. It's like, oh, blending. What?
Well, Becky, I want to thank you for coming tonight and sharing with us these great, and especially a little extra whiskey. Thanks everybody.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Thank you.
And we had a nice, cool time down here in the metro station at Julio's Liquors. We're gonna say goodbye to everybody in Facebook. If you ever want to watch this, you can go to Julio's Liquors Facebook page. It'll be on there. You can go to It's the Liquor Talking. Cousin Vinny will have this out on wherever you get your podcasts, such as Spotify and stuff like that. Just look for It's the Liquor Talking, and this will be up there too. Thank you very much. Thank you, everybody. You guys stay here. I get some stuff to go from you. Everybody on Facebook, it was really great. You should have been here.